A cumulative total of 55,910 Nigerians were reported killed between the year 2020 and 2024, with more than 21,000 kidnapped during this period. The violence has particularly affected Christian communities in north-central Nigeria and Muslim communities in the northwest and northeast. Experts point to systematic attacks and mass killings, which are fueling a humanitarian crisis that has displaced over 3 million people. Moved by this disturbing trend that appears endless, the Peace Building and Social Justice, a coalition of activists, is raising alarm over the continuous violence in Nigeria and urging the British public to support a petition calling for stronger action from the UK government. The petition demands that Nigerian authorities take urgent steps to address ongoing killings and prevent further violence, which has already led to significant loss of life and displacement. The situation is worsened by political instability and socioeconomic challenges, which contribute to the ongoing cycle of violence and mass killings across the country. As of 2024, Nigeria ranks 8th in the Global Terrorism Index with a score of 7,575. This score reflects the country's ongoing struggles with terrorism, particularly from groups like Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa. Joining us this morning for a chat on this is the Chief Executive Officer, Peace Building and Social Justice in the UK, Adedoyin. Good morning, Mr. Adedoyin. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Morning, Temitope.
Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about the petition that your coalition filed on the 1st of October. I'm interested in the fact that you chose the anniversary of Nigeria's independence, when Nigeria and Nigerians were celebrating the 64th anniversary of the independence. But you chose that day to file a petition. Tell us the significance of choosing that date. Is it to dampen the celebration and the ceremony? And what does the petition contain, strictly? And what would you like the UK government or the UK public to do about the things that you're raising in the petition?
Yeah, thank you. First thing to note is that the significance of October 1st is that we are celebrating independence. We want to celebrate true independence. And as a result of that, it was a significant, poignant moment to say that Nigeria and Nigerians deserve to be free, deserve to be independent from insecurity, banditry, kidnappings, and terrorism in all of its forms right across Nigeria. So it was the right time to particularly say that let's not just be celebrating without recognizing the importance of true independence. Right across Nigeria, you mentioned the North Central, the Northwest, but in territories right across Nigeria, a whole complex mix of issues are leading to people losing their lives every single day, people losing their livelihoods. People cannot go to the farm, and it's affecting all of us. Now, you know that we live in an interconnected world. And so that's why Nigerians in the UK, Nigerians in diaspora, as well as friends of Nigeria, are all equally concerned about what's going on in Nigeria and want to play our part to ensure that Nigeria gets to achieve its true potential.
But I'm wondering how much influence really you think the UK government can have on the Nigerian government, seeing as it's not even been able to convince, other governments, for instance, say Russia, Israel, to stop the killings that they are executing. There's also been war in Sudan, Ethiopia, Yemen, Syria, and really it seems like the UK can only do so little.
Well, I talked about the fact that we live in an interconnected world, and the UK government has a role to play. There's a lot of soft power. We have a lot of commonalities between the UK and Nigeria, and I talked about the significant population of Nigerians who live in the UK. It's a partnership. And the whole idea here is to ensure that we are providing the right amount of support at government-to-government level, but we're also playing our part as individual citizens. We're all stakeholders in the project for a peaceful and safe Nigeria. And so the more each one of us does is what's going to get us to that place we need to be.
All right, Mr. Adedoyin, I'd like to know if in any way the coalition has interfaced with the Nigerian government at all, either the political or the military leadership in Nigeria, and because I will imagine that that ought to be the first intervention to make before you start dealing with the British authorities.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the first thing to say is that the body language of the current government is a significant improvement from where we have been before. And we've heard recent reports of non-state actors, terrorists that have been taken out in the Northwest and in various other theaters. We do engage with the government of Nigeria. The current amendments that are being put through the House, we submit inputs into those. But it requires a lot more attention, a lot more resources than it is currently receiving. And we also have to get the narratives right. So we push out narratives around things like farmer-herder crisis, intercommunal clashes, when in actual fact, what we're seeing is a lot more serious than that. The number of stats that hits the headlines is significantly less than what we're picking up on the ground from the grassroots. So just to say that we are talking to the authorities, but we need a lot more attention and a lot more action.
So I'd like to know how much support, this petition has garnered so far. Then are you also working with some pressure groups, maybe local pressure groups here in Nigeria, to find a way to lobby the government to actually take urgent action on these killings?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is that, there's a lot of things going on around the world, we all know. And so we're very pleased to see that in the midst of that, this issue and the significance of it is beginning to gain attention. And as you would have noted from the petition, even people who are not Nigerians or not traditionally concerned about Nigeria are beginning to take notice and are beginning to take action. And we're expecting to see that grow all the more. Yes, we are talking to stakeholders in groups across Nigeria as well, to say that we should be partners in progress. This is not pressure from a viewpoint of, we're just trying to criticize or attack what is being done on the ground. No, we're saying that what is at stake is much more important and much greater than that. Nigeria has got a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity. We can lead the world in so many spheres, and we will only begin to do that when we have a peaceful and safe Nigeria. People in the diaspora, Nigerians in the diaspora, want to invest. Non-Nigerians want to invest in Nigeria, in Africa. This is an urgent situation that needs to be addressed. We need to have the right institutions, the right frameworks in place. Impunity has to be dealt with. The rule of law has to be sacrosanct. And that's not happening at the moment. We have out-of-school children and our Marjories that have a commission. We should also have a commission for the IDPs who are just hidden away in camps. There is a lot more to be done. And if we put our hands and our hearts together on it, we can make the progress that the nation deserves.
All right, I like the fact that you said we need to get the narrative right, and that there's a lot in the diaspora who would like to invest, and they're looking for a safe and secure environment. But then what do you say to individuals like Kemi Badenoch in the UK where you are, who, because she's looking for an opportunity to lead the Conservative Party and hopefully to become the Prime Minister at some point, is always, talking down on Nigeria, is always, for want of a better word, demarketing Nigeria, and raising issues around the issues of security in a manner that people think that is not consistent with what is actually on the ground. And therefore, I'll be interested in how your coalition is taking statements, the type of statement that Kemi Badenoch makes every now and then about the fact that Nigeria is the very opposite of not just the UK, but of every decent society that she would like to have.
Okay, so Stephen, I didn't catch the first part of your question, but you said somebody was demarketing Nigeria. If I just respond to that and say
Go on. I was actually referring...
just to say that the task of marketing Nigeria and ensuring that the world sees us for all of the talent and the giftings and the flamboyance, for the beauty of our diversity, that task is solely for us. If we raise up our voices, the voices of anybody else will actually get to dissipate. So I think that the most important here is that Nigerians and friends of Nigeria should put our hands to the plow, address this. And I talked about the fact that I see some shoots of activity that suggest that positive things are happening. And I was watching a clip whereby a theater commander was giving the updates on what was happening. All of that is great. So even though someone might be thinking of demarketing the nation, as long as we are doing more, as long as we are taking the right approach across Nigeria, bringing out the right policies, addressing the social injustices, then I think that message will go much further than anybody who's trying to bring a negative message.
All right, just to quickly clarify, I was actually referring to Kemi Badenoch, who, as you know, is the last two of the candidates that will be the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK. And of course, you know that that's a potential prime minister. So I was asking for your thoughts on the sort of demarketing, the sort of messages, negative messages that she gives out consistently to the UK public about Nigeria. And I get what you're saying about the fact that, yes, we will have to give out the right narrative and build our own nation. But I'm talking about Kemi Adegoke, who is now Kemi Badenoch, who is of a Nigerian parentage, but who is British and is constantly demarketing Nigeria. I mean, that cannot be lost on your coalition. That's what I'm asking you.
Right. I see. I hear you. And I hear your point. The truth of the matter is, Kemi is speaking to a mainstream UK audience. And obviously, based on her position on the wings of the party, she's speaking out of her experience. Yes, you and I may look at it and say that that is a demarketing of Nigeria. But to a large extent, I would not even pay too much attention to that, irrespective of whether she is potentially a future prime minister or not. We've got a lot more important work to do here. We can shape the Nigeria of the future. And that is what is even more important. Because when we do that, the whole of the world will hear the true message of a diverse people who are united in progress, leading the world in the variety of different spheres. So I hear you, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to that.
Okay, very well said. Now, you talked about seeing some signs, that efforts have been taken to resolve the insecurity crisis Nigeria is facing. And then, of course, I'm sure you listened to the president's October 1st message. Well, I hope you listened to it. And it seems the president, believes that Nigeria is winning the fight against insecurity because it says that insecurity has reduced significantly. And we've also heard reports of some governors that have been dialoguing with the bandits, calls for amnesty for the bandits and the terrorists. I'm just wondering what your assessment, of what would be your assessment of the government's efforts to curb this crisis? Are we on the right path? What else would you like to see being done?
Okay, Temitope, I'm really sorry. I'm not picking up the full question, but I think you were saying something about the fact that
well, what I was
somebody
saying,
was suggesting that there's been a reduction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The president has suggested that there's been a reduction. And I talked about some governors dialoguing with the bandits, offering amnesty. And I'm wondering if Nigeria is on the right path, to solving this insecurity crisis.
Right. Well, I said that, the body language and the utterances either of the president or some of the governors is certainly a lot better than it has been in the past. And I would say that we should commend the human rights defenders, the civil society, who have been raising their voices on this matter so far to see that we're moving in the right direction. But there is a lot further to do. There's a lot longer way to go. And so I talked about the fact that a lot of things that are happening are not even hitting the headlines. PSJ UK, we have got our fingers in the grassroots. We're picking up the pulses directly from the ground. And what we are picking up, particularly in the Middle Belt, where, as you know, the Open Doors reports tells us that 80% of Christians persecuted around the world are in that axis of Nigeria. We need to deal with terrorism in all of its forms. Let's just name them all as terrorism and address them effectively. So yes, we may be headed in the right direction, but we've got a lot more to do together.
All right. I picked the fact that you said earlier that the Nigerian government, the present administration has recorded some, some positives in trying to wipe out the terrorists, the bandits, particularly those of the Boko Haram stock. But I'm wondering if your petition has anything in the area of the renewed UK Africa funding on security and anti-terrorism. Because part of the problem in the past has been the inability to get the right types of support. I think, the US, there was a time that the American government basically didn't allow for the purchase of arms from the UK, from the US to Nigeria. And I think that was during the Obama administration. It was the succeeding administration that eventually allowed that to happen. And now that we have a renewal of some sort from the UK in terms of funding partnership with Africa. So did PSJ UK mention anything specifically on how this sort of funding can be channeled and utilized in the fight against terror in Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, the UK-Nigeria relationships, UK-US, all these international partnerships and pacts are important. But let's not forget that Nigeria is a very blessed, a very endowed, a very rich country in its own right. We have to muster our own resources and dictate our own pathway, our own course, as opposed to constantly being dependent and reliant on foreign partners. And having said that, the most important thing to note in relation to the funding opportunities is that we should be able to sit at the table as equal partners with our global alliances to address this. Yes, we're aware of this, but we're actually quite concerned that the Nigerian position at these negotiating tables, looking at funding, looking at policies that are addressing Nigeria's security, is not as balanced as it should be. We need a lot more stakeholders. We need the voices from the grassroots, from the communities at the tables. We need to bring the bulk of our own resources that are vast to this battle. Because beyond this battle, a brighter day lies ahead for Nigeria. And we have to get our act together as Nigerians, friends of Nigeria, and not always be dependent on foreign governments. Yes, this is a petition in the UK, but don't forget that the number of Nigerians who live in the UK, who live abroad, is vast. So whilst we are messaging the UK government and people who are citizens of other countries, our most important message here is to Nigerians to say, let's put our hands to the plow. Let's bring in the relevant policy and regulatory frameworks. Let's address the impunity. Let's address the rule of law. Let us set a social justice framework in place to ensure that there is ongoing, lasting peace in all of our communities. You know, I grew up in I went to a federal government college. We had people from all over the country came together. We have friends from the east, the north, the south. Let us get back to that place where we not only have true peace, but we reap the benefits and the dividends of a peaceful, progressive Nigeria.
So I'd like to move us a bit to the issue of the internally displaced people who have been affected by this insecurity. What sort of action are you seeking for this vulnerable population with your petition? Mr. Adedoyin, I don't know if you heard my question. I said I would like us to talk about the plight of the internally displaced people who have been affected by the insecurity in the north. What sort of action are you seeking for this vulnerable population of the Nigerian society with your petition?
Yeah, it's a tragedy what's happening with the internally displaced people of Nigeria. It's a blot, it's a shame on Nigeria that non-state actors are pushing people out of communities all over Nigeria, particularly rural communities, farming communities that are feeding Nigeria in the breadbasket of the nation. And then we are sitting down and not taking the requisite amount of action on it. Like I said, the same way that we set up a commission for the out-of-school children, a commission should be set up to address the issue of the IDPs, getting them back to their homes, and their livelihoods so that they can be contributing to the prosperity of Nigeria. Whilst I didn't hear your question properly, those are my thoughts on it, and I believe that it's something that requires a great deal of priority. Also, just to note the issue of justice around this. How is it that we are able to create DDR programs for repentant terrorists and not have addressed the welfare or the justice for the people who have been affected, who have been killed and displaced from their communities? These are all things that I think this petition is particularly looking for strong action on, and is calling us to work together to address these.
I think Temitope, his position is very clear. A petition was put in on the 1st of October to the British government, and they're very concerned, the PSG UK, is very concerned about the spate of killings, in some part of the country. And I picked from what he was saying the aspect of the North Central that he felt that what they are picking directly from the ground, appears to be slightly different from the information that people are giving. And that's part of what I wanted him to make some clarification on, if he was referring in specific terms to the issues that we have had around the Benue Plateau region, and the sort of a thing, and how reliable the data, the information that is gathering. I hope that we're able to get him back, but if we're not able...
I hope we're able to get him back, but then just like I asked him, in the first instance, I'm really wondering what really the UK government can do for us.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's what they're doing is it's good.
Yeah.
They are showing their concern.
Yes.
Any right-thinking individual would be concerned. But then, really, can the UK? Is it the UK that will help us?
Especially if they have to deal with a petition. I'm not so sure that the UK government really can press so much positivity in that area, which again was part of the reason why I asked him about the utterances of Kemi Badenoch, who's a potential Tory leader, a potential prime minister, always looking for opportunities to pull down our country of heritage.
But then, some people would say that she's actually not wrong in all the things she's been saying. So are you just, are you having issues with the fact that she's of Nigerian origin, or what exactly is the issue you have with her statements?
I'm saying that the type of right-wing messages that she puts across, and I don't know anybody who's been saying that she's right. I mean, I follow these issues, religiously, and I see what Nigerians in Nigeria are saying, and I see what Nigerians in the diaspora are also saying, and they are making useful comparison to when Rishi Sunak became the prime minister. This is a man who has spent some time in Africa, his family, in Africa, but we never had him for once mentioning the bad sides of the Indian, country, and then when you now paint your country of heritage, so dark. We know what is also happening in some parts of the UK at the moment, the crime rate that is so high, but then you are painting it as if it's the El Dorado of this time. So I have a problem with that sort of narrative.
Well, like Mr. Adedoyin said, she was talking, we should ignore her, and she was talking, to those that she's trying to curry their favor, so to speak.